Hello and welcome to another Fantasy Premier League video. My name is Steve and today we're looking at replacements for the injured James and Trent. Now Trent has picked up an injury that sees him out until at least game week 14. So he'll mix matches game week 11, 12 and 13, and so he would be a priority transfer if you do have him in your squads. James is definitely, well, almost definitely out for the game against Aston Villa at the weekend. There is a chance that he will be back for the midweek fixture against Brentford. However, if there's any doubt over his fitness, I suspect that Potter will probably preserve him in that Brentford fixture as they go and play Manchester United in the following game, which is only a few days away, days after the Brentford fixture. And so he's probably missing the next two game weeks. Well, probably. I think that he'll probably bring him back in as quickly as he can, as soon as he is back to full match fitness, because he is probably their best player at this point in time. But it's a bit of guesswork at the moment as to whether or not he will make it back for game week 12, which is the blank game week. And so it does throw a bit of a spanner in the works for a lot of FPL teams out there that have got him sitting in at the moment. Now, the top priority transfer in, I would say, if you do not already own him, would probably be Cancelo. He's shown last week exactly what he can do, getting a goal, an assist and a clean sheet, coming away with 18 points. So a fantastic return last week. He does go away to Liverpool this week and then blanks in game week 12, but game weeks 13, 14, 15 and 16, right up until the World Cup, Man City have a great run of fixtures, and so you'll almost certainly want him in your squad for that run of fixtures if you do not already own him. However, I suspect most of you out there already probably do have Cancelo, and so if you do not already own Trippier, he would probably be the next highest priority transfer in. They do go away to Manchester United this week, which is not as assured a clean sheet as some of the other potential replacements out there. But Trippier's on set pieces. He's scored a few goals from direct free kicks. He sends in a lot of open play crosses and does really well on the bonus point system. In the past 4 game weeks, he's got 2 clean sheets and 2 assists, going 8 points, 5 points, 7 points, and 7 points. So he's ticking along really nicely. However, most teams out there already have these 2 players, and so we're kind of looking at alternative options of what to do instead. Now, for my particular team, I kind of lucked out in the sense that I got Totti in on my wildcard as a 3.9 million option that did not play. However, with Collins being suspended for 3 game weeks, Totti came in and played the full 90 against Chelsea last week. I suspect he will probably start again this game week, and they have a plum fixture at home to Nottingham Forest. And so in my case, I will probably just be subbing in Totti for this game week and hopefully just rolling a transfer, as looking forward to game week 12 and 13, there are some other issues that could potentially pop up. I will be wanting both Foden and Martinelli back into my team game week 13, and I don't really want to be taking a hit for that, so I do want to build up 2 free transfers. I also have the unfortunate issue that Maddison in my squad is sitting on 4 yellow cards, and so if he picks up a yellow card against Crystal Palace this week, he will also be suspended for the game week 12 fixture where Arsenal and Man City both blank. Now, if we have a look at the fixture ticker, the most prevalent replacements that I can see, and it kind of depends on your horizon for exactly how long you need these players for. If you just need a player for just this one game week, Totti could actually be a shout if you're holding on to Nico Williams. Uh, Nico Williams, obviously, as I said, not quite as assured with his starts at the moment, but he will rotate with Serge Aurier, who's not quite up to full match fitness, especially with the fixture congestion. And so Nico Williams down to a Totti will free up 0.2 million, and you could bring him in for this one game week against Nottingham Forest. However, that's very, very short-term planning. There are only 6 game weeks left until the World Cup, and so these transfers become very precious. So I would not recommend making that transfer unless it fits quite nicely in with the rest of your team. Crystal Palace is probably top of the list. However, I'm just going to say it outright. Pretty much all of the options that are out there at the moment for your third spot in defence is not great. Crystal Palace, you're probably looking at the likes of Guehi at 4.3 million or Anderson at 4.5 million. However, they're playing away to Leicester this week, and I do see Leicester probably scoring in this fixture. They do then have a pretty good fixture at home to Wolves in game week 12, which is when the blank is. And then they go Everton, Southampton, West Ham, and Nottingham Forest. And so if you're pulling in a player for the remaining 6 game weeks, Crystal Palace is probably top of the list, but does not have the best immediate fixture this game week. Next on the list is probably one of the lads from Brighton. However, they also do not have an ideal fixture this week. They are away to Brentford. I do suspect that Brentford will probably nab a goal in this game. However, there is clean sheet potential for this match, and they do play Nottingham Forest at home in game week 12, which is a plum fixture for Brighton and any team really. You probably want to be targeting the likes of Nottingham Forest. They have not been doing too well in the Premier League so far. And so Veltman at 4.6 would probably be top of the list at Brighton, followed by Webster at 4.5 and then Dunk at 4.6. The reason that I have ordered those 3 in that order is just based on bonus points. Veltman is top of the centre backs for bonus points across the first 10 game weeks, followed by Webster and then Dunk. However, any of these lads could be getting forward for set piece duty and nab at goal, which would obviously be great for the immediate fixtures, but predicting who that's going to be is pretty difficult. And so to go with the players that have been performing across the first 10 game weeks in terms of bonus points is probably your best or safest bet there. Next on the list would be someone from Wolves. Like I mentioned, I will be playing Totti this week. He is not the best replacement for most people, and so the probable only other player that I would actually be looking at in the Wolves outfit would be Max Kilman, 4.5. He's probably the least rotation prone player in that team. They play Nottingham Forest and Crystal Palace across the next 2, but they also have an okay run of Leicester, Brentford, Brighton before they play Arsenal in game week 16, and so you could see a couple of clean sheets in there. Wolves are a pretty defensive unit overall, and so clean sheet potential is probably a little bit higher than the likes of Crystal Palace, who is actually sitting top of this ticker. Crystal Palace have conceded an amazing amount of shots in the box across the first 10 game weeks of the season, and so their clean sheet potential is probably quite diminished. Now, if we go and have a look at some of the more premium teams out there, Cucurella at Chelsea could be a shout. Aston Villa away is a great fixture for Chelsea. Cucurella is probably going to play most of the fixtures under Potter. However, we have seen him rotate his squad quite heavily, especially ahead of that Champions League fixture. And so Cucurella could rotate could rotate a little bit. However, he's probably one of the most nailed on defenders in the Chelsea squad, and he is only 5.1 million. He does get forward, even from that left centre back spot. He has got up the pitch quite a lot, but his routes to attacking potential have been quite diminished since he's been playing more centrally in that Chelsea squad. They then have another away fixture to Brentford, so it's 2 away fixtures for Chelsea. You would imagine that they will get a clean sheet across one of these 2 games, but then they go and play Manchester United in game week 13. Past that, Arsenal, if you're looking at a cheap replacement, you could look at the likes of Ben White at 4.5 million, who is getting very far forward out on the right back. They play Leeds away this game week, which does have a relatively high potential of clean sheet, but then they have the blank in game week 12, and so depending on how your bench is set up and the rest of your squad, Ben White may not be an ideal replacement. You could also look at the likes of Saliba as well, at 5.1 million, slightly more expensive, but of course he runs into the same issues of the blank in 12. Manchester United don't have a great run of fixtures. They do play Newcastle at home, then Tottenham at home, and Chelsea away, so these are not ideal. But Diogo Dalot is putting up some relatively good performances. He's getting quite far forward and sending in quite a lot of crosses that strikers can be getting on to the end of. However, he is sitting on 4 yellow cards, similarly to Maddison, so if he picks up 1 more yellow card, he will be suspended for 1 match, and so he is also not an ideal replacement. And then finally on the list would probably be someone like Eric Dyer at Spurs, who host Everton at home this week, but then they go away to Manchester United, an okay game at home to Newcastle in game week 13, but then a pretty good fixture away to Bournemouth in game week 14. And so across the next 4, you could probably see Spurs picking up a couple of clean sheets in there. Dyer is 5.2 million. I am recommending him because he is the least prone to rotation, and this is why most of the players on this list are part of my recommendations, because with the heavy fixture congestion, we will see a lot of rotation for a lot of players across the Premier League, and so we are looking for the most nailed on options in each of the squads in order to dodge that rotation issue. Now, like I said, these are not great options in terms of replacements for these players, and so there is a different strategy of actually doing nothing. Now, the reason that might be a meta strategy is there are a lot of flags out there to other heavily owned players. Mitrovic is still flagged. Luis Diaz is obviously out for a while, and so you could see quite a few hits flying around over the next couple of game weeks. And so if you can manage to field a player that maybe just gets 2 points and avoid taking a hit across the coming game weeks, you may just get rank rises from the fact that other players in the game will be taking hits in order to deal with these issues. So James is currently owned by almost 40% of the game, so there's roughly 4 million managers out there with that headache. Mitrovic at 22.4%. Diaz is probably a lot less because his injury is quite serious and he's out until after the World Cup, and so he has probably already been sold by anyone who has got him. And Trent is obviously out for the next 3 FPL game weeks, as I've already stated, and so people will be looking to ship him on, and so hits will be coming in game week 11 and 12, and so if you can get through, because there's no standout options, you're probably not going to miss out on like an 8 to 12 point haul from any of the players that I've mentioned that you could potentially bring in, unless you somehow fluke bringing in a defender that goes up for a set piece and scores a goal. And so the likelihood that you actually catch a haul from any of these transfers, which will potentially even set yourself up for a hit in the coming game weeks, could be wise to just do nothing. Same kind of rules apply for game week 12. Fielding the likes of 9 or 10 players in game week 12 is probably not that bad of a strategy because, well, it's the same reasons really. Like there's not too many players to fear. If you've already got the likes of, Haaland, Zaha, Madison, Cancelo, Trippier, Tony, like relatively heavily owned players, you're probably going to get through these 2 game weeks okay without taking any hits. And hits for average players or not elite players that have the potential for high ceiling hauls doesn't really make a hell of a lot of sense over these coming game weeks. And with certain players out, I should have also mentioned there's quite a lot of players out there with sitting on 3 yellow cards, and so if any of those players picks up a yellow card in game week 11, they'll be sitting on 4 yellow cards for game week 12 as well, and so you could see random suspensions from some highly owned players coming up shortly and more hits being taken. And so that is why I am most likely just going to bench James, wait for some more information and see if his recovery is faster than what has been predicted. Because if he does play in that Brentford fixture and I avoid making a transfer this week, in game week 12, I can look at either a luxury transfer or dealing with a Madison who could be suspended. In terms of my team and planning, Madison and Trossard are sitting in there with exact funds for transfers out in game week 13 for Foden and Martinelli if no price changes happen at this point in time. And so I already know that I'm making 2 transfers in game week 13. I think everyone out there should be looking to jump on as many City and Arsenal assets for game weeks 13 through to 16. We'll just have a really quick look at this fixture ticker. Man City, 3rd top on the fixture ticker, have Brighton at home, Leicester away, Fulham at home and Brentford at home before the World Cup kicks in. Arsenal are away to Southampton, home to Nottingham Forest, a tricky game against Chelsea away, and then Wolves away to round out their last 4 fixtures up until the World Cup. And so I know that I'm going to be making at least 2 transfers game week 13, potentially even more depending on if any other injuries pop up, which is even more, there's a higher percentage that injuries do occur in these very quick turnarounds because players are having to play every 70, I think one of the teams has like a 63-hour turnaround between their 2 Premier League fixtures, which is incredibly short. There is 3 game weeks to be played in 8 calendar days over the game weeks 11, 12 and 13, and so we will probably see other injuries pop up that we will have to deal with. And so considering there's not amazing options out there in order to service the likes of Trent and James outside Cancelo and Trippier, it may be worthwhile even just playing the likes of a Nico Williams or some other bench member who may even just come on and get a point, because the -4 versus the 1 point that they will get will probably work out better over the next 3 game weeks. So, not ideal. There's no real sexy picks out there. It is what it is. And yeah, that's pretty much the video for today. So if you did make it this far through the video, please do consider giving it a like. And if you are new around here, click on that big red subscribe button to be notified about more FPL content coming your way. And until next time, I'll catch you again shortly. Cheers.